What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel here. Guys, this video, we're gonna be going over one of my favorite ways to catch fish in the fall time, and that is going to be an Alabama rig, an umbrella rig. You know, I've got several different setups for my Alabama rigs. Today, we're gonna be talking about the early stages of the fall transition into winter when those fish are feeding up, chasing a bunch of bait. And you know, here in the DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, the shad typically in these lakes don't get super big. The majority of the fish are eating around 2 to 4 inch shad most of the time. Now, sometimes they will key in on the bigger shad, and that's what I have bigger A-rigs for. But today we're gonna be focusing on the Finesse style A-rig, or how I like to set up my Finesse style A-rigs. Obviously, you can always size down your A-rigs to make them smaller and smaller and smaller. Something like the tactical mini flex rig or some other ones of that sort. But today we're gonna be mainly focusing on my setup for a Finesse style A-rig, and it comes down to jig heads, the swim baits you put on them, and how you actually set up the A-rig itself. Now, we're working on trying to get some different style A-rigs in the store here. We do have a good selection. You can check them all out, lakeprotackle.com, guys. But today, let's take a look at A-rigs, how to finesse them down, and how to get more bites on them. So typically, as I break down an A-rig, you know, there's a few main components that I like to focus on. You know, first of all, what really makes an A-rig is, you know, it has 5 wires coming out generally. It either has blades or doesn't have blades, and this is going to help me determine how I'm gonna be throwing my bait, what line I'm gonna be putting on it, how heavy a jig head I'm putting on it. So, you know, base A-rig, it's gonna have 5 wires. This one here is just gonna be the 5-wire rig by Yum. This has no blades on it. It's still gonna be almost a full-size A-rig, so it's gonna have around 7-inch, 6.5-inch arms, and you just put 5 swim baits on this. Now, you can put underspins and stuff, make it all complicated. Guys, I typically just put a straight jig head on it and whatever swim bait I want. So this is going to be basically the base of my A-rig selections for Finesse A-rigs. So no blades. It's gonna have, you know, pretty small swim baits on it. Now, you can throw bigger swim baits on these, and it really just depends on the action, and there's so many different swim baits out there to help your action. You know, bigger swim baits with bigger kickers on them are gonna make your swim bait or your A-rig rise more, and it all just depends on how you mix those together. So starting with the A-rig itself, let's talk about this one here. So no blades. It's not gonna have as much resistance in the water. You can generally throw a little bit lighter line on it, and typically I like to have a little kick on here. And you know, my typical go-to swim baits for Finesse A-rigs is going to be these guys right here. Now, these here are, I guess, technically made by Bruiser Baits. These are the little swimmers. I forgot what I think they're called super swimmers, but as you can see, that tail section on the bait is very fine. It narrows down almost to, you know, almost no plastic. The main body of it is only 2.5 inches, and it just barely kicks. It's just a little tiny kick in the back. You know, you take something like a Kitech Fat Impact, you know, something like that. That whole body's gonna roll. That tail's gonna really kick because it's catching a ton of water. But these guys here, you can actually get them off our worm bar. We sell these in bulk. Now, we don't sell these online. We do sell Bruiser Baits online, but we don't sell them in bulk online. These are super amazing. I absolutely love these. It's a great small profile for my A-rigs, and I just catch a ton of fish on them. There's not a lot of salt in them, which is great for A-rigs. You know, you're not adding a ton of weight in the back. You know, that's gonna offset your A-rig, make it kind of run more like this, and that's not what you want. You want it to run as horizontal as you can. And you know, these guys here don't put off a lot of resistance. You don't need a ton of heavy weight, and depending on how those fish want to chase or if they're just sitting there, I can either, you know, bump the jig heads up, make them heavier, sink faster, and work that A-rig faster, or, you know, since these don't put off a lot of resistance, I can really crawl my A-rig right near those fish in the strike zone for a longer period of time. So with thin wires like this, small kickers, typically I'm gonna be going with around 1/8-ounce jig heads. Some of my favorite, you can get them online. We have these custom made for the store. These here are the Woods and Water. These are technically swim bait jig heads, but they also say on here magic shaky heads. You can use them for shaky heads. They are very thin wire, not super thin, you know, thick enough to where you can really hit a fish, but you don't want to be using, you know, like a flip and stick rod, something super heavy. 5 in a pack, guys, and it's only $5.99. 1/8 ounce jig heads, I absolutely love these. These are 90-degree jig heads, so as these sit on your A-rig, it's actually gonna, you know, have the weight of itself swim down. Always make sure your, you know, your swim bait is sitting correctly. It's not gonna flip over or anything like that, that you'd sometimes get with some other swim bait heads. But, you know, adding those all 5 1/8 ounce on here, typically is what I like to do. If I do need a little extra weight, I'm gonna switch the middle swim bait head to something a little bit heavier, like a 3/16 or a 1/4 if I really, really need it. Typically, just 5 1/8 ounce jig heads is going to be good enough for me. The whole rig itself will weigh around an ounce, which is pretty good for most heavier medium heavies or heavy rods. Typically, I'm gonna be throwing around 17 to 20 pound line, usually in a 7.4 to 7.6 rod length. And, you know, I'm always gonna have an 8-speed reel. You know, with A-rigs, I love slowing it down, and you can really slow down the 8-speed if you want to as you reel along. But the 8-speed, throwing the jig heads here, you know, really just throwing that bait is super, super easy. And you can really just work your bait around those areas. You know, typically I like to target my fish with live scope. I know for those of you who don't have live scope, you can definitely still hit high percentage areas where you see bait pushed up, and you can use your down scan for that. You can use your eyes, you can look around. Usually bait's flickering near the surface in the fall time. They're coming up in that little bit warmer water once that water fully turns over, and you can generally see fish busting bait. You can see the bait flickering near the bank, and those are gonna be your high percentage areas. Now, obviously, fish are gonna be moving around all the time in the fall time chasing, so points, rocky riprap areas are always high percentage areas. The bridges always generally hold fish in the fall time through the winter time, just because it's access to deep water. They can move up and down on that vertical structure. They can eat crappie, they can eat the shad, they can eat bluegill that sometimes make their way around there as well. And the A-rig is just honestly one of my favorite ways to catch them. Now, if you struggle with really thin wire, you know, swim bait heads like this one here, we do offer these here. These are the Picasso Smart Mouth jig heads. What's awesome about these is they come in a very, very strong Gamakatsu hook. These ones here are 3/16 of an ounce, and it's a 2/0 hook. So it's not a super big hook at all. You know, it's definitely gonna be able to fit these 2.5-inch swimmers. Your hook's gonna come out right before that tail section, and it's going to provide you a very, very good hookup ratio for your swim baits. Now, we do offer several different sizes of the weights and several different sizes of the hooks, so you can find the perfect one for you. We do sell like, I think it's like 1/2 ounce 2/0 hooks, which are, I mean, super stubby. The head looks real big, but that's perfect for, you know, throwing out in the middle of your A-rig. Now, to talk about another style A-rig that we have, this is also a fan favorite. This is going to be the 6 Sense Divine Junior umbrella rig. So the wires are 5.5 inches. It's going to be a lot shorter than this one here by about 1 inch. This one does have blades on it, and one thing I do want to note on this one here is it has a little bit thicker wire. So with that Yum wire here, these are very prone to bending on you, to coming out of the head and stuff like that. With this one here, you're not gonna have to worry about it. It does have some upgraded hardware, like the swivel at the top of the tie right there, so you're not getting a lot of line twist. And the hardware on here is very, very heavy duty. So the rig itself weighs quite a bit more than the Yum one, has thicker wire, so that's gonna create more drag in the water. So typically you're gonna need a little bit more weight, and that's where I might upgrade to the 3/16 ounce jig heads, add maybe 2 of them on there, maybe 3 of them. And I'm gonna beef up the line, generally beef up the rod as well. Still 17 to 20 pound line is perfect, but you can really, really use and abuse this rig here. So it's got the 4 blades on it, very high quality materials on it as well. And you can work this around areas. I like to work this around areas that have a ton of bait in it. You can replace the blades if you want smaller blades to create it more finessey, less drag in the water. But typically, you know, if you do see pods of bait fish roaming around and you see them either with live scope or down scan, and you see these tight packed wads of bait, adding blades will definitely help your bite just to mimic those bigger schools. Sometimes those fish like to key in on just those schools, and they get so keyed in on just those bigger schools of shad that they won't hit anything else. You know, you try throwing like a Demiki out there or like a single swim bait, a lot of the times they won't go after it. Now, A-rigs for bank fishermen, if you're going to the lake, totally fine. If you're using these in a pond, typically, I don't like running the blades. They they get gunk on them. You get like any little slimy algae or grass on it. It's gonna ruin the whole action of the bait. So typically for pond fishermen, unless you're fishing just a pond with no grass in it, I would not throw an A-rig, but you still can, you know, if you don't have all that, you know, if it's a deep little, you know, soil conservation pond or something like that, like a quarry style pond, definitely try them out. The 5.5 is great for that in ponds. We do also sell the Yum version of this just in an ultralight wire, and that can be super deadly as well for me. But guys, definitely check out all the cool stuff we have for A-rigs. These little super swimmers are awesome. Kitech Easy Shiners, they rip really easy, but they are amazing, amazing baits. The Kitechs will start playing, and of course the Divine Swim Bait, 3.3s I believe they are, the smaller ones, those are super, super deadly, very durable as well. Definitely check out all our A-rig stuff, guys, on the website, lakeprotackle.com. If you're looking for some, you know, 18, 20-pound line, we've got bulk spools of Shooter, got bulk spools of FC Sniper, and of course we got Red Label and VizX, whatever you need. If you need something, let us know. If we don't have it, you know, guys, we can't carry everything, but if you do need something, we can custom order it for you. So definitely reach out to us by email, DM us on Instagram, Facebook, and guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video on Finesse A-rigging. Of course, I've got some more information to share with you, so stay tuned by subscribing to the YouTube page here. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time at Lake Pro Tackle. See you guys.